You are different from the rest. You are not satisfied with blindly following. You want to know the truth behind the movements. Well, you're going to need to learn some history to figure that out. Let's start with Okinawa, the birthplace of karate. For a long time, Okinawa was known as the Ryukyu Kingdom. During this time, karate was being taught as a means of personal protection. Many of the OG instructors were quoted saying that karate featured both striking and grappling techniques. If you watch instructors of this method perform bunkai, the applications of the forms or kata, they often demonstrate things that look similar to southern Chinese kung fu. The movements, in general, are interpreted from a close range. This makes sense, as in a self-defense situation, you will likely be taken by surprise and need to act from a flinch-type position. Let's talk about Japan. Now, in the beginning of the 1600s, Japan had a temper tantrum because they couldn't stand the stinky foreigners anymore. So Japan locked itself in its room and wouldn't let anyone in. This changed in 1854 when Commodore Perry showed up from the USA with his steamships and cannons. He was like, "Hey Japan, the West is spanking everyone around the world. You want in on this or what?" Japan was like, "Yes." And so they invited the stinky foreigners back to show them how to spank the rest of Asia into submission. In no time at all, Japan began aggressively spanking everyone around it. This included Okinawa, which officially became part of the Japanese Empire in 1879. Japan admired the industrialized West because it was king of spanking. Like, these dudes would take out Genghis Khan and Alexander the Great in the morning and still have time for afternoon tea. Japan became like the West's annoying little brother. It started copying everything the West was doing. It did the nationalism thing, it did the empire thing, it did the thing where it wanted to fit youth to better serve the military. And to do this, Japan adopted the Western educational system, which included teaching sports to children. Here's the thing, the West did wrestling, and Japan was like, "Nah, we have judo, and it's better because it's not smelly and foreign." The West had fencing, but again the Japanese were like, "Nah, we have kendo, and it's better because it's not smelly and foreign." But there was something that the West had that the Japanese didn't. Boxing. A striking sport where you hit people with your hands or your feet if you did that French savate thing. The Japanese had nothing to compare it to. Then, some Okinawan dudes saw their chance to cash in on karate. They were like, "Hey Japan, here's this thing that has punches and kicks, and look how muscly it will make your soldiers." They also changed the writing of the karate kanji so that it no longer read Chinese hand, but instead empty hand. They didn't want the art of karate to reference Japan's new spanking victim. Japan started doing the karate thing, but they didn't need the grappling, and they didn't need weapons. They needed the striking. It was during this Japanese era of karate that the first karate textbooks started to pop up, and systemized names were given to all the techniques. It's also at this time that karate started to get sporty. Here's the thing. When the Japanese thought about martial arts, they thought about it like there were weapons. See, the noble class all carried swords around until Perry showed them that swords were old hat. Even jiu-jitsu, Japan's native grappling system, was originally heavily based around weapons being part of the picture. So when karate started getting sporty, they sort of mixed karate techniques with kendo rules. Now, in swordsmanship, there's this idea called iken hisatsu, which means to kill with one blow. It makes sense with swords. And since karate people had really strong hands and feet, I guess they thought it was a good idea for karate as well. Thus was born what I call the distance application lens. When you watch people who use the distance application lens apply the techniques of the forms, it looks like swordsmanship. The ma'ai, or combative space, is that of swordsmanship. The footwork is similar to swordsmanship, and the focus on killing an opponent with a single blow is straight out of swordsmanship. Well, I think this makes for an interesting martial arts system. It's different from the original karate of Okinawa. Now, when Japan started spanking Korea, they brought over all their national stuff like sports and distance application karate. A lot of Korean people learned Japanese distance application karate. They called it Tang sudo, which interestingly is written the same way that the Okinawans originally wrote karate, meaning Chinese hand. Eventually, Japan got tired of their older Western brother America telling them what to do. They made the classic little brother mistake and tried to spank big brother. We all know how that turned out. After Japan received the hardest spanking in world history, Korea was free from Japanese occupation. Korea was like, this Tang sudo stuff gives me flashbacks of Japan and all their spanking. Let's call it something else. So the Koreans took the Tang sudo techniques, reorganized them, and called it Taekwondo. Taekwondo quickly became its own thing, and the Koreans made a really cool sport out of it in which dynamic kicks are featured and full contact kicking, and it's really cool. Eventually, this sport form of Taekwondo would become an Olympic event. Now, as for the forms of Taekwondo, if you want to know what the techniques are for, there's two ways you can look at it. One is the distance techniques of Japanese karate. The other is the close-range techniques of Okinawan karate. The creators of the forms almost certainly had the distance techniques in mind, as that was the version of karate they learned. However, as Taekwondo students, we can play with applying the forms in both the close-range Okinawan way as well as the distance method the creators likely intended for it. After all, the techniques are the same. The lens is what's different. Hey, if you liked this video, and I know you did, don't be a freeloader, give me a thumbs up, and head over to tkdguide.com. I have multiple free courses, and if you throw me a few pesos, a course on the Taeguk forms featuring both close range and distance applications of the techniques, just like we talked about in this video. Check it out, try those free courses, and if you like the channel and you want to support it, buy that course. Throw a few pesos my way, it supports the channel. It's a great way to say thank you for the video. Peace out.